Even though I really don't like the heat, there's something magical about summer. Even when I was a kid, there was something magical about finally being free from school, being able to sleep in, play video games, or do God knows what with my friends at our local pool. Even now as an adult, I like summer whether it's just staying in and playing video games or going out and listening to music underneath a tree. There's something magical about this time of year. But for us Americans, we can all agree there's one very special day in the dog days of summer, and that is the 4th of July. For all of those who are not American, for all of those who do not have beer running through your veins, drinking barbecue sauce from every creek bed, and have the undesirable fixation to want to replace your nipples with machine guns, I will solemnly explain why this day means so much to us. July 4th, 1776, marks the day that the Declaration of Independence would be signed by the 13 original colonies of the United States of America. This would begin the war with Britain, as we would then fight for our independence to become our own country. This marks the day as our Day of Independence. So that's why the 4th of July is also called Independence Day. And the 4th of July is filled with many great things. A lot of good cookouts, a lot of cool fairs and sales that go on in stores, as well as the biggest thing of this holiday, the will to commence war on the sky with everything the Phantom has to offer in terms of fireworks. This day is the one day of the year you can go into any Phantom fireworks with Mickey Mouse sleep pants and a wife beater, and they will treat you like a Rockefeller. So the 4th of July is very special to me, mainly because I have a lot of childhood memories of going to fairs as well as sneaking around my neighborhood just to see fireworks go off. And it's that second thing that leads to this story, as this snowballs into something a lot bigger than it should have. And for this, of course, we're going to need some context. As a kid, me and my older brother played a lot outside. We'd played soccer, imaginary fights with sticks. We did the whole thing you'd expect kid boys to do. But we always wanted adventure beyond our own house. And what are two kids in the prime of adolescence supposed to do for that adventure? Wait until nightfall and decide to dress yourself in all black. I mean, what else were two kids heavily inspired by Sam Fisher supposed to do? Just play in the backyard pretending to slay dragons? That's lame. So we would dress in all black like ninjas of the night and scurry around our neighborhood trying to hit a new milestone every time we did an adventure. Sometimes we'd trespass into other people's property, sometimes it was just getting to the back road that had nobody on it at all times, or it was just going even further beyond to an abandoned greenhouse that wasn't far from where we lived. But this would where our 4th of July antics would come from, where our mission that night was to see some fireworks. And since we live in a small cul-de-sac of nearly elderly people, it wasn't very likely we were going to see fireworks that close to our house, so we had to go a bit of distance away to see some that were being fired off. This part is a bit odd because I have to explain to you an oddity in my neighborhood that explains the kind of people that are attracted to this particular house. There's a house in my neighborhood that is vacant a lot, and many have attributed it to some kind of curse, that everybody that ends up in that house ends up having some sort of bad ending with marriage, life itself, etc., etc. But this house is very close to me because it's literally in my backyard, diagonal right of the back of my house. So I see it every day. I'm very familiar with it. I've seen a lot of people come and go from that house ever since I was a kid. For a brief history, and this isn't all the stuff nor is it the correct timeline of things, but for a brief history, the first owner, the house was built in the 70s by the way, died in that house. After that, somebody got divorced and the husband that was left with the house trashed it before disappearing. The next person had their son turn it into a drug lab, and after they were arrested, once again it was put on the market. Then, another dysfunctional family that got divorced, wife disappeared, and then came my favorite family. Because these people were wild. They were like an episode of Jerry Springer. They were the reason people chanted Maury. They were the Floridians. There's much to be said about the Floridians, but I never really talked to them. We had a neighborhood potluck to welcome new people, but they didn't show up to that. Nor did many people have the time to talk to them because they never seemed to have left their house. And every time somebody tried to give them a welcoming gift, they never seemed to answer. On top of this, the only time I ever got to talk to them was when their dog went missing. My brother had caught it in our front yard before it had run onto the road, and we were holding on to it till they came looking for it. and it took them 6 hours to realize that the dog had ran away in the first place, and then another hour to come ask us if we had seen it. After returning the dog, I never saw them again, only heard them. And God, I hope that dog is okay. God, I hope it's still alive. But the Florida people were interesting because they had a very nasty tendency for making their business the neighborhood's business. And you may be saying, how could they do that if they never left their house? Well, you see, they had a very bad habit of having their daughter come in at 3 a.m. Their daughter was, I would say, a little bit older than me. I was around 14, 15 at the time, so she was probably 17, 18, going high school senior at that time. But she would always come home late and her dad would viciously yell at her. And to escape the yelling, she would go to the backyard, hoping that her dad would yell at her there. But oh no, it didn't stop there. I remember one night at 3 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom and heard them having an argument. I then snuck out my window and hid in a pine tree in my backyard and overheard their discussion because what I was hearing was Jerry Springer-esque material. I had learned that night that that daughter had a train of 13 men run on her. And this was an argument that went on for so long and got so loud, somebody called the cops. And when the dad tried to explain the story to the officer and got to the point of the 13 men, I remember the officer just kind of under his breath went, "God damn." Uh, but you could see the kind of people these Floridians were. And these were the people that were living in that house when me and my brother decided to go look for fireworks. And so on that faithful 4th of July, me and my brother would commence Operation Lady Liberty's Panty Raid. Okay, that wasn't the actual name we called it. We didn't have an operation name. We weren't corny like that. I'm going to try and explain this part as quickly and easily as possible, mainly because I fear that my poor directional skills will get a couple people lost. And don't worry, it's not just you. Somehow I could get lost in a Chuck E. Cheese bathroom. That's how bad my olfactory nomad directional skills are. So if for some crazy bizarre reason you would find yourself standing in my backyard facing my house and you turn to your left, you would notice my neighbor's house, and just beyond that is a small wooded area. Originally this was just a small vacant lot that had a fruit stand in it that shut down sometime in the 60s or 70s. After the owner closed up shop, though, the brambling and trees just kind of grew around it, consuming it with nature, which made it the perfect place to hide. The brambling had gotten so thick that seeing if anybody was hiding in there during the daytime was nearly impossible, so it made the perfect base for a nighttime operation. Weirdly enough, when me and my brother explored it during the daytime, we found that somebody had built a hobo teepee out of re-election for mayor signs, and this was a structure somebody had been working on for years, because some of these election signs went back as 2005. And I'm not saying that my area is riddled with homeless people. It's a small suburban town in Ohio. I don't really think we have that kind of problem here. I think somebody either ran away from home and started living in that brambling for a while, or somebody was doing this as some elaborate prank. The mystery of the TP will always go unsolved. But keep in mind that this was a stealth operation, that this was European extreme, and if me and my brother got caught, it was fish and mailed, and we knew people were going to think it was suspicious that two kids decked in black were just running around the neighborhood, and I don't think people would buy the whole trying to watch fireworks thing. So instead of cutting straight through our neighbor's yard, not knowing if they were awake or not, we decided that we would go around the backside of their garage. They have two garages, one attached to their house and one that's more like a barn in the back. And the way it's stationed is that it's nearing the property line of the people diagonal left of me, the Floridians at this point, and the Floridians have a big tan barn that always had peeling paint. I remember that they never repainted the thing. And so we would use those as cover as we would make our way to the brambling. The only problem is that the barns always stopped short of just before the brambling. So there was a good 10 or 20 feet before we actually got to the brambling. And the way that the Floridians' house was, because I've seen in through their window, is that their kitchen faced towards my neighbor's house. And so they would see out that window and see if anything was happening. But somehow, during this stealth operation, the Florida dad had turned his perception up to 10. He was spamming VATS in the dark and somehow saw us, decked in black, and he still saw us somehow. And this is where the problems began. Because in that one moment of bath salt induced paranoia, the Florida dad jumped to the darkest conclusion of what me and my brother were up to, and that was that he thought we were sneaking around waiting to break into people's houses, and of course called the cops. Now, by this point, me and my brother were long gone. We had no idea we were even caught in the first place. We didn't know the mission was up, the jig was over. But we had gotten to the Brambling and went down a quiet road to see the fireworks. And two things went wrong for us to double time it back to our house. The first was as we were coming back, well, sneaking back, I use that term loosely in air quotes. As we were sneaking back, me and my brother got caught by a guy who sounded like he smoked like 40 packs a day and of course had to approach us in his underwear and wife beater, really Ohioan if you think about it, and ask us, "What you boys up to?" And from that I froze with fear as my brother booked it like Usain Bolt into the Brambling, and I quickly followed suit. We disappeared into the Brambling, and as we caught our breath, we heard the police sirens. Not only that, the police were patrolling with floodlights to check the Brambling. So we decided to wait for them to pass and then book it back to our house as fast as possible. And this time, we weren't going to take the safe route behind the barns. We cut straight through our neighbor's yard because we knew he was going to be asleep at this point, and we hopped in through our bedroom window. The cops had gone door to door asking if they had seen two kids decked in black that were potentially sneaking into people's houses and breaking and entering. And of course, our mother said no, there was nothing of that sort happening. And again, to this day, that wasn't the plan. We didn't have any intentions of crime. We just wanted to see some goddamn fireworks. I don't see why that's so hard for people to believe. But this didn't stop there, because the Florida dad wasn't appeased with them just going door to door. He demanded action, goddammit, and so if the government wasn't going to step up, he was going to. And so the Florida dad, the red-blooded American that he is, with Budweiser in his balls and hamburger for a heart, decided he would take his family, load them into his Ford F-150 that he had modified with extra floodlights, and drive around the neighborhood. Not only that, I learned later that he, his wife, and his oldest kid were all armed with hunting rifles, and started circling the neighborhood like a vulture circling a dead animal carcass. After like 2 hours of this, though, the police just got sick and tired of it. They eventually just told them, hey, this is going to be a police matter. You're going to be breaking curfew soon. You're going to get a lot of noise complaints. You might want to just stop. But after an hour of this, they started taunting these would-be assailants, saying it would be easier if they just come out and face the music. Honestly, during this whole escapade, I was kind of expecting Born in the USA to just start blaring as they were just circling our houses, trying to find me and my brother as we're just watching this all unfold. Did I mention they had a Confederate flag on the back of their truck as they're driving around with hunting rifles and floodlights, looking for two kids they jumped to the conclusion were trying to break into people's houses. Oh my god. But after this all concluded, I think me and my brother just looked at each other and were like, I think we're done with this whole stealth operation stuff. We might actually get shot by these people if we continue this. It's fair to say that after this, there wasn't much from the Florida people. Eventually, I think the husband and wife got divorced, the kids went with the mom, and after that, God knows what happened to him. I still, to this day, think about that absolute bombshell who had 13 men run on her in a night. To this day, it still baffles me that was happening in my small, quaint little town. But hey, it just shows you never know who the hell you're gonna meet in small town USA. And if there's anything to learn from this, do not, for the love of God, sneak around in all black trying to do a stealth operation just to see some goddamn fireworks. It isn't worth it. Take my heeds, take my warnings. For God's sakes, do not do it. Happy 4th of July, everybody. I'll see you all next time.